and welcome back, everybody, to the DanJohnUniversity.com podcast. I'm Dan John, and I'm here in St. Mary's in Twickenham, London. Today I have a lecture on easy strength. I'm looking forward to it. We'll make we'll share some of the information on that. Remember, if you have questions, send them to podcast@DanJohnUniversity.com. I'm here every week. I love answering your questions. I hope things are going well for you. This is episode 201. We had a lot of technical issues the last few weeks, and once we discovered the issue, it was such a simple fix. I'm not going to mention the products we use, but I will say that one of the companies seems to go out of their way to make things difficult to delete information. So our storage was vastly overloaded, and well, it's all good now. So here we go. We have a question from Matt. Matt says this. He goes, "What is your take on doing movements in a specific order, and do you have any suggestions? I don't mean do bench press before dips so you have energy to bench more. I mean something along the lines of these two examples I tried that seemed to help the main movement, such as a few sets of leg curls before squatting, or a few sets of pull aparts before bench." Okay, my general order, when I put together programs, and this is just from the matrix: push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded carry, because loaded carries can be used as more of a finisher. One of the things I do if you have a weakness, very often we'll flip the order and have you do them first. For years I had people do front squats first. That's not the question you're answering, but I just wanted to make sure I responded, because that does come up a lot. I know I talk about an intervention in some of my other books, but it shows up. It's a good question. So Matt, let's now kind of edge into your question. Here, especially when I teach at the universities, this is something that comes up a lot. Now, we're not talking about activation here, right? And I appreciate that from your question, Matt, is that you're asking, are there exercises you can do that will support? Fortunately, I had a chance a couple of years ago to be with Tim Anderson, and I was telling Tim my issues with certain parts of my Olympic lifting. And he came up with an interesting way to do rest periods. I'm answering your question, so hang in there. So for example, if I do snatches, after the set of 3, I get on the ground. So I'm doing 3 snatches, 1, 2, 3. I pop on the ground and I do 6-point rocks from original strength. I catch my breath, because that's more of a mobility. And in my case, kind of it seems to get me, the word we use in my gym is tonic. It makes me feel like I'm back where I should be. Then I would stand up, walk over, and grab a 24, 28 kilo kettlebell, and do a suitcase carry, left hand down and right hand back. Nothing fancy. And what I noticed from doing those exercises is that they seem to help my squat snatch. Then later we added just a light set or two of like Bulgarian goat bag swings or any hinge movement. Light RDLs would be fine. Deficit deadlift probably be a good answer for some of you. And I began to notice that my snatch, and then later with the clean and jerk, they were just getting, and if you're ever Olympic lifted, really done anything, even if you're a musician or what, all of a sudden things seem to orchestrate better. And so to answer your question, I think yes. If you read my post-deployment program, that's in the book Attempts, and on the DanJohnUniversity.com, it's called the Hypertrophy and Mobility Workout. I've really spent a lot of time. I think what you're asking is a very good question. I'm not going to make it perfect. At the website and in the book, those articles that's hammered down, that's thought through. I don't have them with me, so I can't really quote it as well. But let's just say you're going to do something like a press. You're going to do a military press. Well, if you compound that with an issue having, most people that I work with have lockout issues, and you can see that even when I do that there. So we would do a combination of military press, a waiter's walk, maybe something for some people, especially most of the people, many of the Americans I work with, the T on a suspension trainer, and maybe some gentle kind of mobility. So I want you to think this way. We're going to do an appropriate loaded carry, an appropriate, kind of complementary move, the suspension trainer, and then anything else that seems to prime you for your lift. And then we do the lift again. So you do the lift, you do a mobility movement, a complementary loaded carry, maybe a complementary opposite movement, do the lift. I honestly think that this is sort of the future of the people I train. I've been kind of working on it. It's one of those things you have to do before you can appreciate all the benefits of it. The hardest thing to explain to people is, the rest period is doing a mobility exercise, a complementary reasonable loaded carry, and a complementary reasonable kind of opposite movement or supportive movement. But yeah, I think there's really value. I liked what you said here with leg. In most gym settings, doing a superset, like you say, leg curl followed by front squat, I would understand. I think that there's some logic there. I've been kind of thinking about this as I've been walking around lately. It is something I'd have to experiment with, but I like where your head's at, and I'd be really interested to hear what other people have tried on this. It's one of those things you do have to do it before you can comment on it. So, but if you don't mind, folks, if you have ideas along this, just type, just put something in the, in the comments section, and I'll just keep playing around with it, and maybe this is something I can make more logical down line in the future. Really good question, and I think that this is the future of what we do in the weight room. The serious big movement followed by complementary mobility, loaded carry, and then a supportive movement or an opposite movement. So great question, and thank you. So Dante asks the question. He quotes me, and many people I quote: block, tackle, fall on the ball, free throw when tired, transition defense. And actually, it's transition defense. Actually, it's the third one is offensive rebounds, basketball. Get the serve over and in, protect the middle, play as a team. Volleyball, run like Tigger, cross the X, ruin your shoes in the sea. That's a javelin throw. Pulling strength, squatting strength, tranquil mind. Dick Nottmeyer's advice on Olympic lifting. Stretch 1, 2, 3, repetition. Be a thrower that lifts, discus throw. Never deny, rarely affirm, always differentiate. That's what a theologian told me about how to keep things, how to answer questions in theology. Show up, don't quit, ask questions. That's my 3-part formula. I started using it in 1996 in my first newsletter when I was an administrator. What other sets of 3 keys have you collected for specific sports, for careers, and for life that don't generally make it into your books? Okay, this is one of the few times. So basically what you did to me is you took every sport I coach, you gave me the 3 points I took, decades in some cases to come up with, and you or other people to come up with, and then you asked me to come up with more. I think you've got the whole list there, Dante. I'm going to cut this question a little bit short, if you don't mind, because it's a good question, but I need more feedback. I'd love to hear what like a surfer says are the 3 keys to being a good surfer. If you're a musician, obviously it's gonna be practice, practice, practice. And that's fine. But I would love to hear, if any of you do a martial art, if any of you do a sport I don't know very much about, the idea is this: when you really know what you're doing, generally you can summarize everything into three basic points. And it's not perfect, and that's something you have to realize. But the best of the best I've been with have been able to look at you and go, well, okay, here you go. This all comes, interestingly, from a conversation I had with a fighter pilot. He's the only person to ever fly an F-16 in combat and the Warthog in combat. That's just something people don't normally do. He actually flew the Warthog and then retrained as a fighter pilot. And I asked him, and I go, just between you and me, what are the three keys to being a fighter pilot? And he quoted another fighter pilot who said, speed kills, hit and run, straight lines, no hooks. And after that conversation, I really did get into asking the best of the best a leading question about what are the three keys. And it completely changed my coaching. So again, I'm not being lazy. I just don't know every sport and every game well enough to give that advice. But write down in the notes and see what we can do. This might be a fun thing, and maybe one of you will cobble together all this and make a brilliant book and make all my work dispensable. Thank you. That's a fun question. That's a good question. Thank you. Casey asked a question. Are there any good alternative to weighted squats? Details: I'm 45, extremely active, firefighter, paramedic. I train for fun, as we all do. Overall strength, mobility, and athletic longevity. I do lots of walks, long distance skateboarding, surfing, yoga. Help Dante with his question, and weight training. Several years ago, I had severe sciatica pain and was diagnosed that it came from medical stuff. I deep squat daily as part of my yoga routine, but it seems whenever I include weighted squats, barbells, or kettlebells into my lifting program, I feel like the issue sciatica creeps back. I was really enjoying mobility I was developing from doing your goblet squat to overhead squat drill, but after a week or so of it, I felt pain creeping back. Same with Bulgarian split squats, which is an exercise not everyone should do. Stu McGill told me about the problems with it. Something called a split pelvis, a phrase this just scares me. Recently, I've taken to pushing a weighted sled as a replacement for weighted squats. What am I going to miss if I just don't do squat with weights? Should you do weighted squats? If it works, if it's your sport, if you need it, if you need hypertrophy, I'm sorry, I don't know of a better exercise than high rep back squats with heavy weights. Sorry. If you're a power lifter, that's your sport. If you're an Olympic lifter, it's your sport. I've said this many times. If I could do my whole career over again, there'd only be two real changes. I would have never squatted over 400 pounds, 180 kilos, and I'd have done more hill sprints. The movement, I tell my students here, maintain the movement of squatting, increase your hinge. So if you're getting away with the bottom position of the squat and doing weighted sleds, hill sprints, and that's working for you, you have my blessing. When I first started getting people to do the goblet squat, now, we're turning the clock back 2 decades plus now. One of the first things I came away with is, why was I working so hard in the back squat when you got this goblet squat exercise? And as many people, my students will tell you, and people who I train, that goblet squat with 24 kilos, and then you use a broomstick for the overhead squat, that drill, the goblet squat to overhead squat drill, 24 kilos and a broomstick for 8 reps, it destroys me. I walk away after that and I'm like, okay, that's a workout. So yeah, I think you'll be okay. I actually enthusiastically am encouraging you to stay on your path. And I kind of think that most people would find more benefits in doing what you're doing, running the hills, pushing the sleds, drags if you sled drags if you can do them, than smashing your face against the wall doing squats. Yeah, I really appreciate this. Now, oh boy, I'm a little worried what's going to happen to me on the World Wide Web for telling people that squats aren't the answer to all questions. But folks, squats are not the answer to all questions. This is what we believed back in the day. I remember Kim Goss coming back from this Olympic lifting camp, and he said, kind of as a joke, he said, yeah, if a guy doesn't finish his pull, he was told, more squats. If the guy didn't, lock out his jerks, more squats. If the guy didn't pull from the floor, more squats. At this camp, squats were the answer to all questions. And I just think there's more answers than that. I enjoyed answering that question. Of course, now I have to deal with all the criticisms. I hope it works. I would like some feedback if you can keep that sciatica issue at bay a little bit, and I'd like to know if this helps. Thank you. So Paul asks a question. Do you believe adding a band to kettlebell swings is something that can be done more or less every workout, say 3 times a week? Or do you feel like the added resistance and speed could introduce too much stress if done regularly? I am a massive fan of those banded kettlebell swings. Now, one person went to one of my RKCs, the kettlebell certification, and then did a video a couple days later because I'd showed this exercise to this person because they had specific issues with their elite athletes. Well, they tagged kettlebells and all these other things. So I got a nasty note from somebody that, you never use bands with kettlebells. Where does it say that? As an American, I looked through the United States Constitution, couldn't find it. I went through the entire Bible, couldn't find any issues with banded kettlebell swings. So it's, I don't know of a state, a province, or a country that has legally banded swings. That could have been funny if I wouldn't have said it that way. I'm a huge fan of bands. In my gym, every hip thrust is done with holding a band here. So I'm holding the band here, and we've got on a vertical plank, the band's on the ceiling. On the hip thrust, the band is on the wall. I've shown these on the YouTube. You should be able to just go look and find them. I love bands. I think here's a simple one. Hook a band up to a wall, a door, and then just pull it in front and just stand countering the band with your hands out here about sternum or xiphoid process height. Just hold it there. It's one of the best ab exercises I've ever used. It's also one of the best anti-rotation exercises I've ever done. I love bands. I think banded swings, if you're a power athlete, you can keep the load relatively light. I mean, if you use the Dynamax Blue Band and do swings with 20K, that thing comes back to you so fast. It does feel, it feels like game speed, I'll tell you that. Bands are underappreciated, and I have a theory why, and it's not a good one. A set of bands costs, I don't know. I don't know what a set of, I wish I knew prices. But, if you go to the Perform Better website and you pop in the bands, I don't know what a set of the strongest bands are. And then you look over to what a set of, kettlebells will cost you, dumbbells will cost you, everything. It's a lot cheaper. And I think part of it is financial. Now, having said that, I think everybody should have a full barbell set, and it'd be great to have a full set of kettlebells. But I tell you, bands can do amazing things. And the more I use bands, and I learned this from the late John McKeon, who died almost a year ago, who used Dick Hartzell's, they were called flex bands when Hartzell came up with the concept. And he used it he would keep the weight constant, but change the bands on certain deadlift exercises. And I think there's some brilliance in that. Progressive resistance exercise done with bands is an area that's really not been explored much. So again, it's been kind of nice in this episode. This is another one of those far-reaching concepts that I think and I hope will kind of illuminate the future of the science in strength and conditioning. Good question. I enjoyed that. Thank you. We got a question from Dee Dee. Should a person in their 30s worry that they will not obtain their 50s goals and should reach those targets earlier in life and just maintain them? Or is it okay to not worry about and reach those goals when the time comes? I do know this. If the upside of strength training is that it changes your health span. Peter Attia's new book on longevity, I think it's good. And I do think the last chapter on emotional health is by far the best part of the book. But he does talk about this a lot. It's interesting to have, he has something called I think it's called the octogenarian decathlon or something like that. But, I want to get up and down off the ground as long as I can until I can't get up off the ground. I want to be able to bounce out of my chair as long as I can. I do know this, and I've been watching it happen in my life. I am getting weaker and weaker as I age, and I am fighting the fight against it. You are in your prime time. My best Olympic lifting was in my 30s. My best discus throwing was in my 40s. I was still a successful Highland gamer in my 50s. I retired in the discus 13 years ago. I still Olympic lift. Obviously, I'm shifting more to bodybuilding now because, I'm 66, and that's an appropriate thing to do as a 66-year-old. Ozzy, who puts together these notes for me, and he's the one who takes the podcast and clears it up. He said an interesting thing, if I could do this decade by decade thing. I'm going to simplify it even more for you. So, in your youth, you should play every sport and game you possibly can, learn everything you can, be exposed to everything, kayak, sail, get into fencing, get into, climb trees, climb walls, swing from things, swim, play volleyball, water polo, figure out what you're best at. In your youth, you should Olympic lift. Later in your life, you should power lift. And then the rest of your life, you should bodybuild. A couple of years ago, I think his name was Clarence Euster. He did this great YouTube talk. He was a 99-year-old sprinter and bodybuilder, and he talked about the secrets of youth. And I think when you say 99-year-old sprinter and bodybuilder, I think you summarize what is possible. So in your youth, you want to build your fast twitch muscle fibers, with the ballistic lifts. Later, keep everything together with the big power lifts, and later strive for all the lean body mass you can, and occasionally pick up speed a little bit and feel good. That's what I think, and I'm doing my best to follow my own advice. That's a fun question, and thank you. Shay, I have read Easy Strength. It's available at danjohnuniversity.com/bookstore. And I plan to follow the program as written. I chose the military press, pull-up, deadlift, the carry, and the ab wheel. That's great. I don't know if there's a better solution. As a police officer, I perform 2 physical tests per year, and among other things, I'm tested for the maximum amount of hand-release push-ups. We call those T, but that's fine. And was wondering how it would be best to incorporate them into my training regime. Is it better to perform them in addition to easy strength, perhaps on the off days, or maybe I should perform them as the push exercise instead of the military press, perhaps loading it with a vest in order to stay in proper rep range. By the way, I love the idea of doing the hand release push-up, the T push-ups, with a weight vest for your situation. This is one of those questions, and I think a lot of people, Shay, miss the point of easy strength. Easy strength is how to train one of life's qualities, okay? I want you to get as strong as you possibly can. So easy strength for fat loss is, I want you to get as strong as you possibly can, and then right after you do that, you go for a walk. If you're one of my discus throwers, we do easy strength, get you as strong as we possibly can. And then we go out and throw the discus for 2, 3, 4 hours. If you're an American football player, good easy strength for your strength. And then all the other qualities. What I try to do with easy strength is teach you that this quality called strength can be achieved in a reasonably short amount of time to support your other goals. Now, if you're a power lifter, an Olympic lifter, by the way, Olympic lifting and easy strength work actually pretty good together. And as Vinny Tanner has taught me, easy strength is actually really good for powerlifting, which shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. So easy strength, that 15-minute workout, I always say 15 because that's how long it takes me, that short workout, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it takes you, that workout is to get you strong. After that, you step back, and if you're a police officer, might be a good idea 1 or 2 days a week to get some, I would say one day a week for sure, get some sprinting in. 1 day a week, I wouldn't mind you going for some kind of longer ruck, longer hike, just to hold on to the quality, because you're going to have to, if you're ever called upon to have to sprint, it'd be nice to have some background in it. I don't want you blowing a hamstring, saving somebody's life. I want you to save their life, but I don't want you to blow the hamstring. After that, that's when you practice the skills you need for your job, for your sport. On something like the push-ups, I would suggest something, maybe you probably can get away with 2, maybe 3 days a week of doing the test exercises. 1 day a week, do the heavy one with the ruck, push it, and maybe 1 or 2 other days you practice the movement. Let's say the workout. I'm just spitballing, so I apologize, but maybe those other 2 days a week, you pick a number like 80 or 100. That's a lot, and you just do what I call up to sets. You pick 50 reps. Here, I'm gonna do 50 reps today. The first set, you get up to 11 and you start to feel a little burn. Relax, rest, shake it out. You start at rep 12, you get up to 25. It might take you 5 sets, 6 sets to get up to 50. The next time, do something a little bit more organized, like 5 sets of 10. We're talking about 50 now. Whatever the test number is, once every 3 weeks, do the test, so that when it is time to test, the test is just I like people, the military and the police, firefighters who have a test. I want the standard to be a shrug. Yeah, I got that. If they tell you you have to do 10 pull-ups, and you can do 25, you do the 10, and okay, I got that. You want to be in a situation in testing that you just shrug your shoulders. In my career as a discus thrower, we were expected to bench 400, snatch 250, clean 300, and squat 450. Those are the Tom Fahey numbers. And late in my career, I just turned those into, of course I can do that numbers, of course. And I got to tell you, I think that's part of the reason I threw so well late in my career, is because I suddenly just made the weight room, yeah, I got that. And I focused on what I was supposed to be doing, throwing the discus far, not just, impressing people in the weight room. I hope that helped. Remember, folks, easy strength is the way you get strong. I think Tim Anderson's original strength is how you stay mobile and you hold on to those other qualities, the vestibular system. Walking, I think, is how you make the fascia happy and the lymphatic system happy. So if you do your easy strength, do your original strength, do your walking, to help your digestive and elimination system, eat your fiber, eat your veggies, eat your fermented food, drink your damn water, get your protein in. If you take care of those, and sleep, of course, I forgot sleep. If you take care of those simple basics, original strength, easy strength, go for a damn walk, fermented food, fiber, veggie, protein, sleep, everything else, you focus on the task that you want to be elite in. Great question. Thank you so much. Davis asked a question. This is a tough one. How would you recommend cultivating a culture of strength at a high school level, especially when no culture of strength exists in the school now? Well, okay, there's two things I want to talk about. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to rethink about how you do standards at the school. And this will be a little unusual because my other answer is the culture one. The first thing I'd like you to start to do is, I know you probably have a bulletin board, or I hope you have strength standards, steal mine, bulletin boards and all that stuff. And then you got that top 10 list and everything. One of the things I want you to start doing is figure out how many months old your athletes are, especially your male athletes, when you do anything. What's happening in the United States high schools right now is a lot of the parents are holding their kids back as athletes so that they're 2 years older than their classmate. I taught at a school where I had two boys with the exact same birthday. One was a sophomore and the other one was a senior. So how does that happen? Well, the sophomore's parents held him back in kindergarten and in the 8th grade. So by the time he was a sophomore, you're looking at him on the field of play, and this kid is a stallion. He's 2 years older. So I'm telling people now to use months. Now up in Canada, I can't remember what book it was, but they noticed that the best Canadian players seem to be born January, February, March. In the States, very often, there's a real advantage, depending on your state, but if September 1st or August 31st is a cutoff, many of your best male athletes will be September, October, and November births, because they were always months ahead of their classmates. And of course, if you hold your kid back and they have a good birthday, they can be 24 months plus older than their classmate, and you're going to fall in love. Look at this kid bench press. Well, yeah, this kid's great because he should be a sophomore in college, not a high school senior. As I pointed out one time in a meeting, how many of you would be comfortable with a sophomore in college coming to the campus and picking up a freshman girl? And a couple of the administrators went, well, I'd be uncomfortable. And I pointed out that this is what's happening right now. And I said, we've got to start to have these discussions. So the first thing I want you to do on this culture is I want you to start looking at the way you do standards. And I know it's going to be a lot more math, it's going to be a little bit more work, but start looking reasonably at the ages. You're going to find that a certain kind of kid loves the weight room. And very often it's the kid who has more success in the weight room. And it's going to be your job to build up, let's just say this, not everybody's little Danny John who got kicked out of every weight room he's ever been in because all he wanted to do was lift all day. The best thing I can tell you is a couple of things we do, like in the inner circle. DanJohnInnerCircle.com. When you're trying to build a culture, you need to do more than just 5 sets of 5. You need to have some interaction. I'm a big believer in a concept called intentional community. And that's why whenever I do groups, you'll notice whenever I talk about, like when I tell people how to do the Southwood program, I always use the word cohort. And it's very specific the reason I use that. So I got the 4 athletes. I don't like racks when we do this. So we have a bench with no racks. Athlete 1 is the bencher. Athlete number 2 is deadlifts the weight up. Athletes 3 and 4 appropriately bring the weight over the athlete 1's face, and then 3 people spot. When the reps are done, 3 people grab the bar, put it down, we switch. The reason I want that to be that way, and in the Southwood workout, they are all using the exact same load, is what I'm trying to do is build up an intentional community. And what I want them to do is encourage each other, be safe with each other, help each other, teach each other, be intentional, and be communal. So first, I want you to think about having standards, but having appropriate standards for the age of each child coming through. Second, I want you to think about really encouraging and enforcing intentional community. And the final thing is, in any way you can, every day, you, the instructor, needs to talk about, during Black History Month, I had this great, I don't even know where I got it now. I want to say Bill Hinburn sent it to me, but it was somebody else. Somebody sent me a video. I wish that the video broke. A video of a history of John Davis, world's strongest man. And I remember telling my students that very few people in America knew about John Davis as a lifter because he was black, he was African American. And it's interesting because I've had people push back on that and say, oh, he wasn't the first person to clean and jerk 400 pounds. It was this other person. It's historically inaccurate. And they give credence to this other person because this other person was not an African American. And it's fascinating. But so what I want you to do is this. I want you to talk about Tommy Kono. Why do I want you to talk about Tommy Kono? Because he was a Japanese American who was put in an internment camp, and he was very sickly, and he overcame it with weightlifting. I want you to talk about, as much as you can, the great heroes of weightlifting. I'd love it if you would talk about Milo of Crota, the great wrestler who, picked the bull up and walked around. By the way, his father-in-law, his coach, was Pythagoras, who came up with a Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Now, why do I think that's important? Well, you just helped a geometry teacher. And they're going to go in the class and raise their hand. We talked about this in weightlifting class, and I got to tell you, that's how you build a culture. If you get a chance to get some footage of the Olympics, show that in the classroom. If the world's strongest man contest is going on, show those deadlifts. Do your best. I did like videos because I was able to organize videos up on the shelf for appropriate months. But I think it was very important to show videos. Okay, now I got to change the way I speak. But you have this wonderful device now called YouTube. Find appropriate videos. There's amazing videos on YouTube. There's interviews with people. I always kept things a little tight. I tried to never go over 9 minutes on a video. There was some research earlier that after a certain number of minutes, people click off and they don't really respond to television anymore. They start to drool and wait for a commercial about a sugar food. So keep the videos tight. There are some amazing things. I used to show my students the videos of Demas squatting as a youth, and he is just rock solid. And then I would show videos of him, clean and jerking to win the gold medal. And what I was trying to get across there is, this is how you become great. I hope that helped. I know I went on a couple of tangents. So number one, you got to make sure you have appropriate standards for your boys, your girls, by month. It's going to take a while. Make sure you push the cohort intentional community, and then at least once a week, if not more often, try to show, teach, preach about the history of what we do as lifting. I hope that helped. Well, listen, I thought that was a great podcast. I really appreciate it. Remember, if you have questions, send them to podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. Reminder, over there at danjohnuniversity.com/bookstore, we have the Easy Strength Omni book. It basically it's massive, and I hope it helps, and I hope it makes a difference. Well, as always, until next time, let's all keep on lifting and learning.